Welcome to the Why Not Today podcast, where we celebrate courage, determination, and the power of saying, why not today? I'm your host, Leslie Kane, and in each episode, we dive into inspiring stories of individuals who have taken bold steps, faced their fears, and embraced the possibility of today. From entrepreneurs to artists, dreamers to doers, we explore the moments when we said, enough waiting, why not today? Join me as we uncover the heartwarming, the audacious, and the transformative. Whether it's pursuing a lifelong passion, overcoming obstacles, or simply choosing joy, our guests share their journeys and inspire us all. I started this podcast in honor of my father, Patrick Kane, who often did say, why not today? And remember, you're just one decision away from changing your life. And my guest today, I'm really excited for you to get to know. It's Mindy, and it's Schulz. Is that how you pronounce your last name?
Schulz, yeah.
Okay, all right. And so I would talk about where we met and where we connected. And about a month ago, I did an episode on the Why Not Today scavenger hunt of where I meet people and just really trusting that the people that I respect and I feel I have that energy with, when they say meet somebody, I reach out to them. So I had lunch with my friend Lisa Adams one day, and I met this woman, Mindy, or actually I think I saw, she posted on Facebook a picture of you two together and said, if you don't know Mindy, you got to know Mindy. So I'm like, well, I need to know Mindy. So then I had lunch with Lisa, and she's like, yes, you do need to get to know Mindy. So Mindy and I scheduled a lunch date, and I don't even know how long we were there. We had so much great stuff to share.
We did.
And has done another call since then. And I just love all that you're doing. And you've been doing some new things about play and having fun, which I'm all about. So I'm excited for everybody to get to know you. So why don't you introduce yourself a little bit, who Mindy is, and then a fun fact, and then we'll talk about your courage journey.
Awesome. So here am I. We can talk about the work, right? And I'm going to share this because I recently had a client that just shared this wonderful testimonial. And I just loved the way that she could see me through her eyes. And it was such a beautiful thing. And I said, oh, I get it. Like, I help leaders be someone others want to follow without becoming someone else. I help women, especially, most of my clients are women, but I help people step into their own confidence, their own persona. It's like, I was speaking with a client yesterday and she says, you're like a Michelangelo. I said, what do you mean? She's like, because there's this piece of marble, I'm the marble, and you just help me chip away the pieces that don't belong, because what's left is this beautiful masterpiece of me. And I'm like, I love that.
We're going to get into more of that once we get into your courage journey stuff. So anything else about Mindy we want to
you asked me. Fun fact, I learned how to drive a forklift before I got my driver's license.
Wow, that's fun. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in West Virginia, way over on the Ohio border, about halfway up the state, near Parkersburg, West Virginia. And I've been working since I was about 10 years old.
And most entrepreneurs have this. We have that spirit.
Yeah. So one of my jobs required me to learn how to drive a forklift. And I'm like, I don't have a license. Am I allowed to do that?
You can do that. I remember my youngest sister who has Down syndrome, Amanda, which I often mention here. We were at the beach one time staying somewhere where we could drive 4-wheel drives on the beach. So we let her drive. And she just thought that was the coolest thing in the whole wide world. She has a picture in her bedroom of her driving. But
yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun.
All right. So let's talk about courage. What does courage mean to you, Mindy?
What does courage mean to me? I feel like when there's something that's just so embodied, it's hard to actually give it a description for yourself. And I look back through my life and I think courage has just been the willingness to show up and do the right thing, the brave thing, even if it wasn't always the easy thing. And sometimes for me, that looks like the thing I'm afraid of most is exactly the next step that I need to take.
Right. Love that. And yeah, we need to do that. And I think people think that this courage is you got to have before you start, but no, you get it when you do it.
No, courage is a byproduct.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've had an interesting journey, and I know you're a coach now, but I know from our conversation, you were a corporate job and then decided to go out on your own. So let's talk about that courage journey, or if there's any other pieces before that. And I always like to, when we're talking about it, to say, okay, were there why not say moments in your journey where you knew exactly where you were, what you were doing, you can feel yourself back in there when you made that pivotal decision in your life that took you in a completely different trajectory?
Oh gosh. I am so glad you're bringing that up, because one of my favorite things about you, Leslie, is that we really bonded over this concept of why not, because you get it. Like, you get it, and the way you described it is perfect. And I feel like that's the way that I've led my life, or rather been led in my life. all through my journey. From things like I got a black belt because I wanted to, and I was driven, and I felt this pull, even though I was told I was too much of a bookworm and I wasn't athletic enough to do that. You
And I
know,
think sometimes we do things when people tell us we can't.
and it was my interest, but I had to listen to myself. And I think that's really what it takes for why not encourage. It's like, you have to listen to yourself. It's like, what really aligns with you, despite what everybody else is saying, even though it seems illogical, even though they're trying to give you proof on why you can't, or why you're not good enough, or why you're incapable of that thing, right? We know ourselves best. And sometimes it just takes that one moment of courage to step into that space and say, okay, let's see what happens.
So
And
do
that's
you
where play comes
remember?
from.
I was gonna say, do you remember any of those courage moments
Oh my gosh, so many, so many, so many.
as you journey? Because I really hope in these episodes that we give people hope and permission and courage
Yeah,
to jump into things that they're afraid of
yeah.
by hearing people's stories.
So one, becoming a foreign exchange student to Japan and Peru, and I did not speak those languages at the time,
No way.
but the opportunity presented, I said, okay.
Were you in
Uh,
high school, college?
I was in high school, and absolutely life-changing, set an entirely new trajectory for my life. And I think that's the beauty of the why not, is like when you can say yes, everything changes in the best ways.
Yeah.
So that was one. The black belt was one. I signed up for a half Iron triathlon, which, if you know anything about Ironman, is the half is a 1.2 mile swim, a 56-mile bike ride, and then a 13.1 mile run.
Yeah,
And
we
so,
had my second anniversary episode was actually with my brother.
yeah,
I reached out to all my siblings. He's the only one that agreed to do it, and we talked about did Ironman twice.
that's amazing. No, this
Twice.
was my first and only.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I signed up because I'm like, I felt the pull, and I signed up before I even knew how to swim. I
Oh,
was
wow.
terrified of the water because I nearly drowned when I was younger.
Wow. Which is another aha for me, the whole pool issue, because I grew up in Reston, where we had a pool on every corner, and I grew up on a lake. So until I got out of college, I had never had the thought in my brain that somebody didn't know how to swim. Like, everybody knows how to swim.
No, it was like, I cannot describe to you the amount of terror every time I had to get in the pool, because I actually I took an intensive swim training class to try to figure out what I need to do. And I remember doing this, and it was for a weekend, and I was still trying to swim with nose plugs in because I was terrified of the water going my nose and like the drowning sensation. And it took like just repetition of getting in the water and saying, I'm going to do the thing. And it wasn't from a place of like, because I feel like so many people do the thing, one, to kind of thumb their nose at others of like, oh, you said I couldn't. And
Right.
sometimes people have a bit of a masochistic, like, well, I'm just going to suffer through it. And I don't believe we have to suffer. I don't believe we have to suffer. I think when suffer comes into the equation, we're doing the thing for the wrong reasons. There's a difference, there's a distinction between suffering and determination. And I just had the determination of, I'm going to accomplish this thing because I feel my inner strength that I can. And I'm going to fight my demons every stroke, every pedal, every step of the way, and make it happen.
What motivated you to do it?
um,
Where'd you get that idea?
One, it was a challenge. Where did I get the idea? I'd opened a magazine once. It was like
Okay.
one of those like self magazines back in the day. And there was an advertisement for a sprint triathlon. And I was like, all I had known was Ironman. I'm like, I could never do Ironman. And so I saw the sprint triathlon. It was a much more feasible distance. And I was like, okay, like I feel like I could do that. So I signed up for that. But before I had even completed that, I had already signed up for the half iron.
Okay.
I'm like, go big or go home.
Exactly. And I think we need those commitments and put a date that we get it done.
Yeah. And it was that space of not just a challenge for myself, but also honoring that promise to myself. Because
Right.
how many times do we say, I'm going to do the thing, and then we don't follow through?
Yeah.
And I work in the realm of subconscious. I'm a rapid transformational hypnotherapist, certified practitioner, and also the deep coaching. And so I work at the things behind the things, right? And so when we're not keeping promises to ourselves, that shows up in so many ways of our lives, and really just we're stealing our power from ourselves in that way. And so when why not shows up, we can't even hear it, let alone say yes.
Yeah. We're so used to saying no and ignoring it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what'd you learn from finishing that?
That I could suffer.
Not going to do it again.
No. I would like to, but kids came into the equation, and I thought that half iron at that point, it was the toughest thing I'd ever done until childbirth. And I realized how hard it wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was that was a big pivotal moment. Um, Deciding to leave my corporate job after I'd been in sales for 25 years.
Yeah, so let's talk
Um,
about that. So what
yeah.
motivates you to want to do that? Because I think a
Um,
lot of people that listen and watch are like, they have that job and it's secure and it's safe and we know it, but we know
yeah.
there's something else. So
And for me, it was really coming to that place of alignment with myself of the company I worked for had been bought out, and I was not in alignment with the culture change and the way that they were shifting things. Instead of being client customer centric, it became far more profit centric, which I believe there needs to be a healthy balance. I think when we start taking people out of the equation, that's just not a business I want to be in.
no,
And so I chose to remove myself from that equation. And at the same time was pregnant with my son. So it coincided that I wrapped up that job. I came off maternity leave, kind of finished things out, closed out those accounts, and then pursued my coaching.
that's awesome. So was it an easy journey to get into coaching? Has it been ups and downs?
It's it's been, and you know my story, and I'm going to share a little trigger warning for people if they're not prepared. My story does involve child loss. And I had pursued coaching and thought, oh, I was one of those people addicted, like, I need all the certifications. And really going through a year-long program, which I'm so grateful for the training. I mean, just the hours and hours of training and learning and exposure and all of that was just so invaluable. And I realized it was something I'm just such a natural at. So instead of learning something new, essentially, it was really just a confirmation of my own gifts, which was so profound for me, of just finding a place that I just felt so at home and so natural and so easy. And the results from me being me, that ripple effect for others was just mind blowing. And so, yeah, I got addicted to like showing up as me and like, what does that look like? So,
Yeah,
yeah.
well, you're great at what you do. And our lunch, we were just sitting there talking, and you're coaching me, like doing what you do. You're doing a great job.
Yeah.
Um,
So, yeah. But I started that, and about a month after I left my corporate job, and it will be 8 years this month. So this is August 2024. It'll be 8 years this month that my son and I were run over in a crosswalk by a distracted driver, and he was
uh,
killed at 6 months of age.
so sad. So
So
sorry.
when you talk about courage, like that's that's the pinnacle of courage for me.
Oh, absolutely.
Is coming back to this life to not just um because I cannot describe to you like how dark and lonely of a place that amount of grief is, that grief and trauma and everything. And to consciously choose not just to breathe every day, but to build your, I mean, people don't realize that I was coaching myself as much as I could every minute of every day
Oh, I'm
of
sure.
just how do I breathe? How do I get through this? And it wasn't
You,
from a place of, I mean, at first it's like you just want the grief and the pain to go away. And then it became a space of, all right, like this is my reality. What do I do next?
and
And
what?
that glimmer.
And did you take that as okay? What can I do to leave, have a legacy, or to make a difference and affect other people?
Um, I want to say yes and no. Yes, because that's the way I do things. I channel the energy, I channel what is at me into a space of what good can come of this.
Right.
I took the challenge and the fear of the half triathlon or that the half iron triathlon and turned it into a nonprofit triathlon group with a group of other triathletes to serve our community. You
Oh
know,
wow, I did not know that.
yeah. So as I helped form a nonprofit there. And in this, it was about how do I show up? And early on, it was I had so many people questioning me, like people I didn't know, because people don't realize we had only lived in this area for 2 years, just over 2 years before the crash. And I didn't really know anybody. I'd been traveling so much for work. I mean, my work at that time was Monday through Friday, every other week, I'm on an airplane in a different city. Um, so I didn't really have a network here. And all of a sudden, I have people showing up for me in very vulnerable, very profound, very passionate, very beautiful ways. And this was another moment of courage of it was very uncomfortable for me. And you know this, and I know a lot of I speak from the position of a lot of my clients too, right? They're so used to doing everything themselves,
Mhm.
right? They're so used to, well, I can just soldier on. I'll just put one foot in front of the other. I'll do it. I'll make my way through. And I realized at that point, I did not have the capacity to do anything on my own. And I had to accept help. I had to accept love. I had to accept support in all these ways. And I had to crack open my heart in ways that felt very uncomfortable at first. I'm an oldest child. I've been doing everything my own. I've been working since I'm a 10, right?
You're a leader
My
and you're
therapist can get all into all of that stuff for me.
right.
um, but it was accepting that support and saying yes. Like that was another moment of why not? Because I couldn't do it. It was 4 months
Right.
before I could just boil pasta and put sauce on it for my family. And I was to this moment, I'm still so proud of that meal I could create for my family.
Yeah, those baby steps.
Yeah, it does. It's baby
Yeah.
steps, and at that point, it's like every moment becomes a why not.
Yeah.
Every moment becomes a courage, right? And they build and they grow and they layer on top of each other until 8 years later, I'm looking at a life I love rather than one I wanted to escape from.
Right. And you have created a beautiful life
Thank you for
and
that.
move forward. And somebody I had on the podcast several months ago, I don't know if you heard her story, Laura Carney. Her dad was killed 54, a lot older, by a distracted driver. So
Oh
she's
my.
done a lot of advocacy work on that.
Yeah.
It was a young teenager on a cell phone.
Yeah.
And so, but years later, she found her dad's bucket list and did the bucket list and wrote a book about it.
Oh, I love that.
But something she just did recently, and we're going to talk about, I think, on the podcast when she's ready, is she got in a lot of advocacy about distracted drivers.
Hmm.
And there was another family that she's worked closely with that lost a loved one. And I don't remember the exact details, but she goes on a phone fast, technology fast from the death of her dad's date to this other person, like a month or two. And she only uses her phone as a phone.
Yeah.
And her lessons of, all the things we do with those phones, which is a whole nother tangent of
It,
conversation we could
we
have.
could we could get on so many tangents, and I admire that. I got active in advocacy work
Yeah.
after the death of my son, and then realized, like, I honestly, like, I just got so frustrated with the politics behind it, and I was not at a space where I could handle the. I was just mad. I was mad. I was mad at the injustice. I was mad at, like, laws needed to change and politicians were playing games, and it ticked me off. And I had to step out of that space for a while to focus on me and my growth and what that looks like for my family rather than constantly being in that space of just angry, frustrated energy.
Yeah.
But
And
I still speak when they need me to. I write for organizations. I share my story where they ask, but I'm not at those legislative assemblies like I had been.
yeah. And, it brings it up over and over again.
Yeah, it
And
does.
yeah. So, all right. So let's talk about your business now. So you've got a coaching business and you
Mhm.
do all kinds of things. I didn't know the hypnosis and all those things.
Yeah.
But, and I know you've been more active. I've been noticing more on social. You've been doing things about play. So let's talk about that. And because I think
Okay.
that's such an important thing is playing and having fun and
Yeah.
enjoy. And that's really what I am about in the Why Not Today messages. Like, we got to enjoy our life. And we're here for a reason and a season, and we don't know how long or short it'll be, but let's enjoy our life, not be miserable with it.
Exactly. And I think too, like, it's not just like so many people talk about joy. It's like it's something they have to seek and find and pursue. And I think if we're in that space, it's the wrong space to be in because then what we're doing is a toxic kind of mindset. But when we are able to be present, when we are able to be grounded in who we are, when we are able to be confident, when we're able to be calm and peace in our mind and our heart and our soul, like when we know who we are and we can live that authentically, boldly, courageously in the world, joy comes to us in every moment.
So
We
true.
don't have to pursue it.
Right.
So that's the work I do. I
Help
mean,
people. So how do you help people with that, being their authentic self? And I think we hide behind so many facades and we have that imposter syndrome. And, we know that we're capable of it, but somebody tells us something. Or I was listening to something earlier today and they talk about, and this is so true. We hear, 100 people can say how amazing you are. And that one person has that question. And you listen to that or you listen to the negative. And I've done that with social
yeah,
media posts. People like 100 people said congratulations, and one person had that snarky comment, you pay attention to that.
Oh yeah. Especially
Yep.
because that snarky comment somewhere like triggers something that you've experienced in your life and a belief you have about yourself. And those things hurt,
It
right?
do.
And
So
as
how do
long
you step into that authentic you
as
and show up as you? Any tips and ideas for people?
me or for a client.
For a client?
Yeah.
You doing it will teach others, or how would you
Yeah. So
somebody?
forgive me, my allergies are killing me. Um, I have a process and I take clients through this process in my group program, Conscious Sovereign. And it's funny because I start where they are, and a lot of people come in at a very mental, processing, logical space because it's safer, it's what we know, and that's so we move from head to heart to embodiment. And along the way, we follow our soul. And it's about full alignment all the way and who we are. Like there's processes that I put them through, right? And one of the things that I love is I call the constriction catalyst. And it's those moments of discomfort. It's those moments of, oh man, that post really like triggered me and hurt me, or I'm just feeling like a lot of pressure and anxiety right now. Like when we can get and understand that moment, and I'm laughing because I just had a conversation yesterday, and she's like, I feel this anxiety and I just have this pressure, and I'm talking about doing these things in my business, and I'm like, well, that's what's going on. Like your next level self is knocking at the door, so where you are is uncomfortable right now.
Yeah.
Like once you open the door, you can expand into that space. And so I love the using constriction, using that space rather than it being an uncomfortable place we want to escape from, recognizing that discomfort of wanting to stretch, wanting to get out of it, wanting to wiggle and move. And, we don't like where we are as the catalyst for, okay, what is this showing me? Where is joy hiding in my life? Where do I need, where might my heart be better served to be open more, like in connecting with others, connecting with myself? Where is love and joy and peace more accessible for me? What does that look like? Maybe it's pursuing your dreams or their next business idea or your relationship or whatever, right? It's how do we pay attention to the things that we're constantly trying to avoid and find the gold within them?
Yeah, that's such you hit it exactly right. Like when we uncomfortable and you just
Yeah. And I think it's a mindset shift because when we stop recognizing discomfort as something we want to run away from, and this is something I had to learn very, very deeply in the midst of grief. It's like I couldn't run away from it. This was my reality. My son was gone. Like it sucks. What do I
right.
do now? You
Yeah.
know? And so I started to listen to like, okay, maybe there's a moment of discomfort. It was like, I need to rest, or I need to say no to this boundary, or I need to just go and laugh with my kids right now. Like what are we denying ourselves in that space of constriction and discomfort? And what door can we recognize that that's really just opportunity knocking to say, hey, your happiness is right here. All you have to do is open the door.
Be aware. And I
Yeah.
think we ignore those, as I mentioned, and it's like I keep talking about those things that wake you up in the middle of the night. You can't get off your mind and you just keep
Yeah.
thinking about it. And I've heard recently several people have been talking about reticular activating system.
Okay.
You know what that is, right?
Yes.
So, and it's for those who don't, it's like when you want to buy a new car and you're looking at a red Jeep, all of a sudden everywhere you see a red Jeep because you're paying attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have that dream, that desire, that thing you're thinking about, and all of a sudden it's all around, like pay attention.
Yeah. I do that with clients. Like, sometimes I'm working with somebody and I'll offer like a deep coaching session to someone who really, really intrigues me and I'm interested and I want to help them. Right. And we'll see where it goes. But it's always in this space of like, hey, and you asked me earlier, like, what is this play? Well, that's the question I ask and say, here's what I do. Here's what we can talk about. Do you want to play? Right. Because the conversation is really just setting the stage for this bubble, this space of like, okay, I can play with possibility. I can play with opportunity. I can play with the idea that I don't have to be perfect. I can play with, I don't have to be anybody but me. And what does that look like? Because I'm safe here. Right. And so we can have really deep, beautiful conversations, and the insights that happen. I cannot tell you. I will have conversations with somebody, and I just had somebody last week. She's like, you said something to me 5 years ago that has stuck with me and changed my life. And I'm like, what did I say? Because most of the time I have no idea what I've shared.
Right.
I'm just so in the
It's
moment.
interesting.
Very intuitive.
And I always say I remember exactly where I am
Mhm.
and when I meet people. Like I remember, and it wasn't that long ago where I met you for lunch, but I can remember as we were walking out of the restaurant, you were like, would you be willing to play and do one of these deep sessions?
Yep.
And I still remember standing right there. I'm like, okay. A little scary.
Yeah, because I mean, you know, there's coaching, let's have a conversation, but then there's coaching of, are you ready to really see what's possible for you?
Right.
Right. Maybe you're not ready to open the door yet, but you're ready to like look through the peephole at least.
Yeah. And
You know,
I think so many people aren't, or we're put in that box that this is the way our life should be. I had a conversation with a friend the other day, and she goes, yeah, it's kind of a shame that she's a little younger than me, but not much, but in growing up that we were told we had to have this career path and you had to go directly into this career path. You can't deviate. I'm like, well, I was raised by an entrepreneur, a big thinker, anything is possible kind of dad. And that was not my reality at all. Like,
you're very fortunate.
Yeah, I am very fortunate. I've talked to several people in the last week of being raised the way they were raised. I'm like, wow. Yeah, very fortunate. And it's interesting, you know, my dad made such a difference in my life, and watching and him, and he was definitely a natural people person, connector. He made people think, and he asked questions. Like I have friends that said they had more conversation with my father than they ever did their own. Like he would people would come to visit, and he's working in the yard, and he'd go, Mindy, you're here to see Leslie. Can you grab that bag of mulch and help me mulch and weed before you guys do whatever you're going to do? I'm like, why are you guys doing that? Like, no. But we were going through some of my his father's documents the other day, and found a letter that somebody wrote, one of my grandfather's associates. My grandfather was a salesman and selling insurance or books, or I think both. And this letter was somebody that worked with him. He says he builds relationships. He doesn't sell, and you never feel like you're being sold. I'm like, wow, I guess that's where I got it from.
Yeah. And to me, like that's what it should all be about anyway.
Oh,
I was in sales for 25 years, and it never felt like selling to me, because it was about connections, it was about the relationships, and it's like, how can I help you make your goal come true? Right. And that's just the way I do it.
Making those connections, and then it all works out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think too, like it touches on something that we talked about in our lunch, right? That when it comes down to it, like the best gift, and I believe this, I believe that our purpose here is to be the most me I can be, the most you can be, the most we can be. Because when we are so deeply rooted in who we are, we naturally are able to show up with that as that unique puzzle piece that we are in this beautiful fabric and puzzle of life. And when we can show up as who we are, we naturally are able to serve others at that capacity. And I think that's what life is about. It's like, how do you show up? How do you live life that you're showing up in a way with love and presence, and that you enable that in someone else?
Right. Instead of being so worried about what everybody thinks, and be you.
Yep.
And we're going to all do life our own way.
Yep.
So, well, Miss Mindy, we could talk forever, but
you have more questions.
Yeah. So how would you encourage somebody else to be courageous?
To be courageous. How would I encourage someone else to be courageous?
To live life, or
yeah. So we, in my my program, Conscious Sovereign, we have what we call Courage Week. And the whole goal, and this is what I say, the whole goal is about those little niggles, those little ideas, however illogical, right? Say yes to. Maybe it's you're in the middle of trying to create this presentation, and your kid tugs at your shoulder and said, hey, mommy, can you play with me? And he said, well, when I get this done, honey, just take 15 minutes and play, you know? Or instead of trying to do one more thing on a to-do list, take a break, go get a coffee, or take a nap. Oh my gosh, I can't tell you how many clients I saw. I'm like, you don't need another plan, just you need a nap.
Yeah.
You know, or maybe it's their idea of like, hey, I had this idea to write this book, and maybe they start drafting out the chapters, or whatever that next thing is, that they kind of have that idea, that little niggle. And it's funny because these moments come in the quietest of times. It's a quiet little voice. Mm-hmm. And the only time it comes is when you give it space within yourself so that you can hear it. But you'll get an image, or you'll get an idea, or you get a little whisper of something, and you kind of feel your soul light up just a little bit. You might get a little bit of a tingle, or whatever it is for you. And so often we're so used to like, well, when I have time, or, when I have the money, or when I, instead of somehow saying yes to that in the moment.
And say, why not say?
Yeah, because when
Just
you can
do it.
say, yeah, when you can say yes to those moments, that voice gets louder and clearer. And then you start to be led in this beautiful direction of your life rather than trying to create a life that feels constraining and wrong and ill-fitting. When you can be led by that intuition, you can be led by that love and say yes to yourself in ways and say yes to your soul, things work out in the strangest and most beautiful ways.
Yeah.
And
And
if
you
anything,
never,
you're just proving to yourself that there's a gift in that moment that you hadn't recognized.
and I've talked to so many people that they start their journey here and end here, where
Mhm.
they never, when they said why not today first, but where they ended up is nowhere near where they started.
Yeah.
But it's just taking one step at a time and listening to that voice. And that's why
Yeah.
I call them the why not say moments. Like you remember where you were driving in a car or going, I mean, the podcast came from a walk with somebody one day.
Yeah.
I remember exactly where I was in the walk to do a podcast.
Yeah.
Who would have ever
Courage
guessed?
courage comes from just saying yes.
Yeah,
Even if
absolutely.
you don't have the end, even if you especially if you don't have the end figured out, just say yes and take one step and be open to where it leads. That's the answer.
Yep. So much knowledge, so many insights. And I just love conversations with you. So what's the best place for people to find you?
I have a very small social media presence because my work is primarily referral and invitation only. So I have a website, mindyschulzcoaching.com, MindySchulz coaching, coaching.com. Or you can just find me at Mindy Schulz on Facebook, and then whatever tends to propagate from Instagram from there or LinkedIn. So
Yeah. And I'll share all this in the show notes, but you have
yeah,
to
no worries.
play more in Facebook, or you're just showing up more in my world.
The algorithm likes me today for you, I guess.
Exactly. They're like, oh, they're friends now. We're going to show up.
And really
Speaking
that's
of,
what it is. Like I just play because a lot of my friends are connected there. And so I think show up as the leader you are, as the presence you are, because leading is leading is a sense of being and embodiment. It's not being a leader. Leader is doing,
yeah,
right? You're trying to figure it out. But if you're just a leader in your inherent nature, you are going to inspire so many others just by being you.
yeah. And you never know, and that's why I always talk about my starfish. And you never know whose life you're going to touch and
Yeah.
who's watching you.
Yep.
And
And it's not your business to know. Just
no,
keep doing your
it's
thing.
not. Keep doing it and not worry about who's watching and who's not, and just be you.
Yep. Yep.
Why not say? Well,
Yeah.
thank you for all your courage stories and your insights. And thank you everybody for listening and watching. And as I mentioned many times, we do not edit these episodes because part of the Why Not Today message, you just got to do it. And so
Absolutely.
thank you for joining us on this inspiring journey. Remember, every day is an opportunity to take action, chase your dreams, and make a difference.
Yeah.
So why not today? And make sure, check out the Why Not Today podcast at whynottodaypodcast.com. Share it, send it to a friend, review it, like it, do all the things, and you can check out all that we have on the Why Not Today podcast. So thanks again, Mindy. And until next time, everybody, remember to say, why not today?